the grit to go into combat if they had a parachute. We were talking earlier on about, or we were just talking right now about how the development of fighting aircraft accelerated in such a short space of time.
Yeah.
And we're talking 1914, 15, 16. That's only a handful of years before the very first aircraft took flight.
Indeed, of course, powered flight starting off heavier than air-powered flight, starting off successfully, it's generally felt, thanks to the Wright brothers in 1903. And of course, training was very rudimentary as well.
It was, and the actually putting armaments onto aeroplanes, again, that was a development. Initially, the aircraft were used for basically reconnaissance, and then the pilots started to shoot at each other with revolvers, and the whole thing moved on from there. In fact, Paul Ford's Triplane has got, it's so accurate that there is also, I think it's a Luger that he's got in the cockpit. It's, obviously it's been disabled, but it's all part of the authenticity of this replica aircraft.
Yeah, modern engine, though, we ought to stress, because of course the rotary in the triplane, not so practical a proposition for the replica builder.
No, absolutely right. We've got to be clear about the difference between a rotary and a radial aircraft, because the radial engine has the cylinders that basically don't move, but the rotary engine, the whole engine moves around, creating this torque, tremendous torque.
Yes.
And it was a real handful to manage for these spot pilots.
But which could be also used, as they got more experience, to really great effect in air combat, using those gyroscopic effects to undertake some incredibly tight manoeuvring. It would have had 110 horsepower Leron or Oberursel rotary in period, the triplane. This replica has 185 horsepower Lycoming piston. The SE5a scale replica we see here would have had 200 horsepower from either a Wolseley Viper or a Hispano Suiza. This replica SE5a built on the basis of a Curry Watt light aeroplane and powered by a modern Continental.
But in the image of the aircraft that was flown by Baron von Richthofen.
Yes, the triplane, absolutely, yes.
The so-called Red Baron. And there is a connection as well with the Second World War there, because with the demise of the Red Baron, who apparently was shot down by ground fire, that squadron was taken over by Hermann Goering. So Hermann Goering led the so-called Flying Circus. So the connection to the Second World War is very clear there, isn't it?
Yeah. This triplane is finished as one of von Richthofen's mounts from Jagdstaffel, or Fighter Squadron 11, and it's the aircraft in which he scored 9 of his 80 kills up to and including his 78. I think it's worth saying the two aircraft are about to come into land, incidentally, that DR1, as we say, absolutely emblematic of First World War aerial combat. Just 320 of them were built. They suffered serious structural problems in period, and von Richthofen only scored his last 19 victories in DR1s. Most of them were notched up in Albatross Scouts,
right.
But it's the triplane that, of course, everyone knows.
Yeah.
It was superbly agile in turns, though slower than its main Allied adversaries. Richthofen was quoted as saying of the DR1, it climbed like a monkey and manoeuvred like the devil. Just 10 DR1s were left in service with frontline units by the time of the armistice. Well, yeah, very good. Other ones have been relegated to home defence and training roles and the like. The SE5a was rather more enduring, even though most of them had been retired by the RAF by the end of 1919, as significant demobilisation took place in the aftermath of World War I.
But we had tens of thousands of aircraft at the end of the First World War.
Yes.
It's a phenomenal figure.
Yes, it was, many of which were simply scrapped. Some of them were put to other uses. SE5As were used for skywriting a lot during the interwar period, but yes, a lot of them didn't have a long life. This SE5A replica is painted as a number 60 Squadron Royal Flying Corps aircraft. which was flown briefly by one of the many aces who flew SE5As, the Canadian Billy Bishop, VC. He was the top Canadian ace of World War I. There were many other aces flew SE5s and SE5As, Albert Ball, Cecil Lewis, who was one of the co-founders of the BBC, Mick Mannock, who was the leading British ace of World War I, and James McCudden, who was the most decorated Empire ace of the Great War. It was our head of airfield services here at Duxford, Tom Turner, at the controls of the SE5a replica for us today. And the Triplane will be following it into land. We often, of course, see these aircraft on static display at the air shows here, don't we, with reenactors?
Yes, that's right, yes.
It's all raw.
In case you're wondering, I think the fire truck on the far side is probably dealing with the pyrotechnics.
Yes, just to damp down any smouldering bits.
Yeah, well, I'll have a suitcase in the car. Well, that was the idea this morning. It didn't quite work out.
And pull forward in the triplane safely down.